So, Marco, what is the weather in Bologna?
Sunny. Sì.
Like you.
Yeah. Sunny.
Both first, yeah.
A little bit cold, yeah, but sunny. I
Oh,
think there are 10 degrees Celsius, something like that.
yeah, it's better than in Sofia. A little bit better. Ivan and me, both of us are big fans of Italy. So,
I know.
yeah.
Ivan, you have to send Ivailo in Italy.
Would love to do that once the COVID is over, because
Yeah, yes, of course.
it's a bit annoying with that thing continuing for so long.
Ivan, ti si v office ili?
Да.
Защото с този транспарант зад това си помислих, че едва ли ти е вкъщи.
2 more minutes and then we'll start. What do you think?
Okay, I mean, depends if everyone shows up or not. Maybe we can allow a couple more minutes after the hour.
So we can start for the event, right? Okay. So good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you for this event. I am Marco Berdero, in charge of partnership management of EMN, and it's my privilege to hold this session today. Thanks to the EMN to give us the opportunity to introduce a very interesting company, Notolytix, that is operating in a very sensitive area, fraud prevention and AML, anti-money laundering. Really, it's a hot topic. In my experience that I've gained in the last 10 years, I saw that it's very important doing the business, of course, but more and more important is that you can do your business paying attention to these aspects. Compliance, international laws, fraud prevention, your data that could be stolen or misused, something like that. Technical notes before the start of the presentation. Technical notices. I kindly remind all participants that the session is being recorded and that the recording, along with any presentation and other material from the session, will be shared with attendees after the webinar. At the end, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar where we will invite you to ask your questions. So move on, and let me introduce briefly Notolytix and the people who my panelists. Noto is based in Sofia. It was founded in 2015 by some industry experts, and with the dream, and it could be fun if they can explain us the dream of building the perfect tool to serve their needs. Here with me, there are Mr. Kutsarov Ivailo and Mr. Stefanov Ivan. that is one of the founder, and they will explain what is the context and what Noto does. So I give you the floor, Ivan and Ivailo, and go on. Okay.
Hi, Marco. Hi, everyone. Good morning. First of all, thank you for having us today. It's really a pleasure for us to be able to reach you as an audience. And I hope you find today's presentation important. As Marco said, I'll be more than happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation. I hope everyone can see my screen right now. If someone is having issues with seeing it or with the voice, I guess, please raise a hand, but I believe everything should be fine. So, Noto, let me see, okay, yeah. Our concept and motto is to be able to provide one solution for all financial crime threats by offering a single integration to our platform and allowing access to all product features to that integration. So our solution is not modular. You don't have to do multiple integrations for fraud monitoring or for AML or for, let's say, internal fraud and some of the other use cases that would help our customers to deal with. The key areas that we focus in are fraud prevention in different verticals, from card issuing to card acquiring, payment processing, AML monitoring. Also, again, regardless of the vertical, whether that's in any licensed financial institution like EMN issuer or a bank or payment service provider. PEP and sanctions. We provide the capability for you to build very sophisticated scoring and matching criteria and access to third parties that actually deliver the list, such as Thomson Reuters and their Refinitiv product. At the moment, we're also integrating Acuity. Noto itself is not a vendor of lists, but we give you all the additional kind of layer of capability to screen and rescreen your customer portfolio, build custom lists and matching that are actually applicable and provide you flexibility to really match the needs of your business. Account takeover and internal fraud are two other use cases that not always apply to all of our customers, but they're also available as solutions in our platform. For credit risk, I want to make one important clarification. We do not offer capabilities for credit risk in terms of lending, but credit risk in terms of payment processing and merchant activity monitoring. So that has to be kept in mind. A little bit about our recent journey as a company. In 2017, we brought our first customer live. As Marco said, we've set up the company in 2015. It was more of a still idea in its early stages. It was coming from our experience in companies like PaySafe, Rakuten, Groupon, and other places where the founders had spent the last 13 or 14 years of our careers. And basically, we started with the idea that no matter what the challenge is, whether you're doing fraud prevention in some vertical, regulatory monitoring, or combination of those two, the underlying data is really more or less the same. It's your user data and their financial and non-financial transactions. So in 2016, we've built a small prototype, and in 2017, we managed to sell it for the first time. Since then, we've been growing organically. In 2018, our customers screened more than 2 billion transactions to our platform. 2019, we participated in the Visa Innovation Program for Central Europe, and we made it to the finals. We kept on developing the product throughout 2019 and 2020, and we've added some really advanced features around PEP and sanctions, matching and screening. Recently, we launched a fully redesigned version of our case management that now really is at a bank grade level and allows for building of different customized review and approval flows. And at the moment, we're launching the first stages of our machine learning and AI layer in the solution, which our customers would be able to put on top of their fraud and AML scenarios. And this would be an ongoing project for us in 2021. Moving on, some of our customers that are more noticeable or worth mentioning, you can see that we have customers in different verticals, from banking to card issuing, card acquiring, and also point of sale payment processing like MyPOS or SumUp. I'm sure you've seen their terminals whenever you are stopping at some of your local stores. Modincon and couple Bulgarian banks also use our solution. Some payment gateways across the world or payment solution providers like EPG or Lira or Cantox are also using Noto for different purposes. Rappi is one of our largest customers in Latam. They're part of the Delivery Hero group, and they started as a food delivery business, but they've also acquired a banking license, issued their own card, and now they're also launching their own credit product through their banking license and partnership. So we've started working on them on the card issuing side, and we're expanding the scope of our involvement with them for the past year and a half. Some highlights from what our customers are able to achieve using Noto. This is from MyPOS and the operator behind the MyPOS network, iCard. They've seen significant reduction of fraud rates and chargebacks. They reduced their declines substantially, and at the same time were able to combine their AML screening within the Noto platform, and by that consolidate really their technological setup instead of running two different systems for fraud prevention and AML monitoring. Cantox, you might have heard of them. It's an interesting business model. They help their customers to manage their FX exposure, especially to businesses like tour operators and travel agents that have delayed payments or future payments. So they entirely screen things like instant SEPA, SWIFT, SEPA payments, and other bank transfers in and out of their network. And they also use us to consume the Refinitiv service by Thomson Reuters through Noto. A little bit about the suspects behind the company. We've all met back in the day in what was Skrill and later became PaySafe. And through its different evolutions, after that we split for some time, and we had the chance to experience also the e-commerce business, or Svetlin, for instance, was helping Rakuten to acquire their banking license in Luxembourg in 2014 and 2015. But that's enough about us. Let's talk about a little bit of what's in the box and what actually Noto offers as product features. In the box, at a very high level, you can see on the graph, in the heart of it is the decision engine, which allows our customers to build different fraud and AML policies, decision trees. It's all customizable through our UI. In a very flexible and user-friendly way. We have case management, a business intelligence layer, capabilities around building different lists for various purposes, from different PAP and sanction lists that can be synced with external data sources, to the well-known positive or negative lists for fraud screening, or lists containing high-value users. Data profiles and data mapping help you with the parameterization of the system and allow you to control any new incoming bits of data and describing the user behavior with data profiles. Very simply put, data profiles are data aggregations that are built either together with us or by the end user, depending on their level of involvement, that look at the customer profile. And all that, again, is very nicely built in our back office. Unlike most solutions, we don't require you to be half a developer to be able to build your rules and settings. It's all point and click. And when I say all, I really mean everything. Moving on to deep dive further into the product, whatever transaction types you send to Noto, whether those are financial or non-financial transactions, and let me give you an example about a non-financial transaction. This can be user registration. This can be update to the user account or a login into the user account. You can build against them a limited number of decision policies and rule sets with outcomes that you confirm. If you want to work with a scorecard, that's available. If you're used to working with final decisions or resolutions like accept, decline, challenge, review, it's also available. It can be a combination of both. Basically, with the rules in Noto, you don't just generate the decisions, but you're also able to manipulate the data, like add or update lists and add new records to the lists, call third parties, receive and process the data from them, like Thomson Reuters or Email Age that delivers intelligence about the email addresses or any other third party that we've included. Everything in Noto runs in real time, and in real time we mean milliseconds, really. Our data center is located in Frankfurt. For everyone that is using Noto on a software as a service basis, and we have a lot of customers that also use us in premises, in their own data centers or in their own public cloud VPC like Amazon or Microsoft Azure or the Google Cloud, depending on their preference. You have an additional capabilities just beyond just building the rules. You can run them on historical data, simulate the outcome. Basically, we allow you to iterate very easily and very quickly before you make a production change. And that affects your acceptance rates or manual review rates or both. Again, this is available right out of the box. We support versioning. So anytime you feel you have to go back and make some changes, you can roll back to the previous version while working on the new one before deploying it into production. The custom profiling, I touched upon that a second ago. With profiles, basically, you see several examples on the slide, but you use them to describe your clients or being that end customers or institutional clients or whatever you guys on board as a business, whether you're B2C or B2B. At different levels, you can profile the activity like number and frequency of transactions over custom periods, volumes, moving averages, median, standard deviation. At the moment, we are adding minimum and maximum. So for any parameter that you send, not just the monetary value of the transaction, you can do that profiling and later use it in your rules. And that really helps you build very extensive and specific scenarios, whether for fraud or for transactional AML. If you want to identify dormant accounts or accounts with sharp change in behavior, let's say the average ticket size on the account roughly doubled or tripled or reduced, or the frequency of receiving and outgoing payments have changed. Oh, that is something that you described. You describe with profiles in Noto and decide even when to trigger those profiles, so you can have seasonality reflected into your decision making. But again, that's a matter probably of a demo of whoever is interested. Moving on, we have a layer, whether it's our own product and also as a third-party partnership with iOvation, which is a TransUnion company nowadays, that collects information from the user device when they interact with any layers of your product, whether registration or transactions page. That layer collects information in a non-intrusive way, so no PII data, but just data about the device. what type of browser are you using, what's the version, what's the screen resolution, what is your time zone and language settings. And if you use that feature, all that data would be added on top of your transactional data in real time and allow you to understand a little bit more about your users and identify also some links that are not that obvious at first glance. The real-time analysis is another feature that helps you link transactions or any user behavior that may not be directly linked. So you can look one or couple hops beyond after a direct link, and the example on that slide makes an attempt to illustrate that. If two transactions are linked by IP address, you may identify some further links by the email address to a third transaction that is not coming from the same IP address, or to another group that are linked to transaction number 3 by using the same, let's say, iPhone to initiate those payments. Again, that's fully configurable by our users. The data mapping, really the parameterization layer. Unlike other vendors, we don't have a mandatory list of fields that you need to send us with your transactions. We really mandate only 2 fields. This is the timestamp, because it gives you the ability to build time-specific and seasonal decision-making logic, and some unique ID of yours. Everything else, whether that's as much as you need to or as less as you want to, it's entirely in your control. Typical banking transaction probably bears more than 150 to 100 fields, but you can be sending much more than that. We consume several main data types: text strings, numbers, IP formats, Boolean values, time intervals, coordinates, and date and time format. You can then later map those fields, give them humanly readable explanations, and you can have multiple, but let me move on to the next slide, talk about the case management. Actually, I'll explain it here. In Noto, you can have various channels and divisions in our data tree. So you can be sending transactions that are SEPA, SWIFT, card transactions, or loan repayments, and all that can bear its entirely different data mapping, and you can be running very different logic into each of those channels that you're sending different transactions. The case management is entirely configurable by our customers. So you decide which transactions you want to review. If manual review and investigation are part of your process, of course, it's not a must. You decide what case resolutions and typologies and grouping and escalation criteria you're going to have. And also our case management can be even deeper integrated into your CRMs and back office tools. So let's say approving a customer or declining a customer in Noto can produce callbacks to some of your systems that you use to communicate with your customer, and by so help you automate that process and reduce the need for the fraud and ML and compliance teams to click between different systems and just increase the manual effort on their end. Some of the partnerships that we have with third parties that I've already mentioned, actually that slide is not really up to date because we added a couple more. Acuity is coming, SPS, it's a North American vendor that focuses on delivering data through the bank APIs about the bank accounts in North America. So that list is growing, and if you have a preferred vendor, let's say for PEP and sanction lists, for us it's usually about a couple of weeks time to integrate that, and we don't enter into a resale agreement. We let you work out your own commercials with your vendors for whatever specialized third-party service. The use cases that I mentioned earlier, fraud prevention, really against any vertical. We have customers that use us at the point of sale, at the card issuing stage or at the card acquiring stage, or also for things like instant SEPA transactions and other banking fraud that may exist in their environment. AML, we cater to any aspect of the transactional AML monitoring, whether that's monitoring financial transactions from different transaction channels. If we take a look at the banking example, that would be any type of bank transfers, in and outgoing, even all the way to ahead of schedule loan repayment, building the initial customer risk assessment upon account opening, and also the core of it, the financial transactions monitoring. The credit risk, I mentioned, it's aimed at our customers who do payment processing for different e-commerce or other verticals merchants, and this allows them to determine the settlement exposure towards those merchants. If you have a merchant that is processing with you and has delayed delivery terms, like for some furniture or maybe travel agency, you're certainly facing certain credit exposure with that merchant, and you have to carefully monitor their transactional activity, how that changes over time, the level of their refunds, chargebacks, reported fraud, so you can always have the right level of collateral on the accounts, let's say in your payment facilitator model. PEP and sanctions. Here we've really went into a deep detail, allowing our customers to decide how many fields they want to match out of the lists, like first name, last name, address, date of birth, assign weights to each of those fields matching or partially matching. And they can even build their own lexical and orthographic criteria, like how do you handle special characters in the different languages? Maybe an example would be translation of some of the special characters in the German and the other DACH region languages into Roman characters, or some of the Slavic languages special characters and their translation into, again, Roman characters. How do you handle prefixes and titles in front of the names? You can even specify that on a very granular level and really make sure that the matches that you are getting are as much as possible true positives, and you don't have a huge pile of potential matches to review, because that's really time consuming and can be costing a lot in terms of manual review resources. The account takeover applies to any of our users that support an account-based system and an online or an app channel access to it. Noto can be deployed at the login stage or the account opening stage and track the user activity throughout their interaction with you. And by doing that, you can either identify suspicious logins, non-authorized transactions, and decide at which point of that you want to intercept any potentially fraudulent activity. You can use this to flexibly trigger any strong customer and two-factor authentication upon login, only when needed, instead of doing it as a blanket approach. Because PSD tells us that we have to authenticate in various ways, but not necessarily the customers like that, or it doesn't bring the desired customer experience if it's just done across the board. Internal fraud. It came out of us talking to players in the banking space, but it's also applicable in other verticals. So if you send Noto any transactions that are internal to your organization, initiated by staff or by any person in your organization with internal access, you can build again policies to monitor those. For example, is any of your organization removing too frequently some of your product fees? or why is someone adjusting balances, of course, that has the right to or the access to adjust balances, or why so frequently? For banks, the use case was looking at what different branches are doing in terms of, again, removing some deposit fees or other things that are not really by the book. The solution can be white labeled. So the look and feel can be updated to your brand, and not all can disappear from the back office. You can expose some of the functionalities to your partners or customers, depending on your use case. That most frequently applies to the payment processing space, but it may also be relevant to some of our audience. A little bit about the architecture and the deployment of the solution. We focus around three main pillars: flexibility, scalability, and performance. Flexibility is maybe our main goal, to enable our customers to really do anything that they need and want to achieve with their transactions and user data. Because if there is anyone that knows the challenges, the problems, and what needs to be achieved, is our customers. We're not really experts in knowing their business. The expertise comes with them. We strive to give them the right platform to do as many as possible from all financial crime and regulatory requirements. Scalability, it really applies both ways to us and to our customers that run the solution on premises, because scalability inevitably touches into cost, and the better our solution scales, the better we can keep costs for us and for our customers under control. And performance, of course, almost everything nowadays is happening real time. Everyone expects us to be able to deliver decisions at the authorization stage, or right after the post authorization stage, or before the initiation of an instant SEPA through the online banking. So we don't have any offline or batch processes. All the calculations we do and the screening that we do happens entirely in a matter of milliseconds. That's in real time. We help you consolidate all of the data that you have from different channels, enhance it with third parties' data, and on top of that, profile as much as you need. And this is just an example trying to illustrate what types of data we can consume, what we can help you build on top of it. And yeah, omni-channel for us is by design. And in our data tree, we really allow you to have a global layer on everything that you do, in case you have a presence in several markets or in several countries, or you have several products. Because usually there is an overlap in customer activity, fraud, and ML patterns. And you can be, let's say, specific in a single market that you operate to reflect the challenges there. But on a group level, you can maintain group visibility and enforce some policies and rules that are a group mandate. What happens after we get the transaction? We offer a standard REST API, by the way, for our customers to integrate. It's very straightforward and really simple to use. We parse the transactional details. We calculate the profiles that determine the activity that you're looking to identify or flag. And it always happens with the transaction. Again, we don't do it once per day, once per 3 hours, once per 5 hours. We execute whatever our users have defined or we've defined together, because we have different levels of customer service and managed services that can be all the way to hand-holding, analyzing your data together, updating your monitoring and screening setup. Or we have some users that are entirely independent and hardly consume those services. It's a matter of setup and preference. And with a single transaction sent to us, a single call, you can deliver your AML recommendation, your fraud recommendation in terms of, let's say, accepting or declining the transaction, and also do a bunch of other things like calculate the customer span or move them from one tier to another, from one list to another. Anything that is also part of your fraud and compliance strategy, because we all know that fraud and compliance approach is not in a single point, not in a single layer. It's a combination of different layers and techniques and approaches that you take to mitigate the risks that you're faced with. A very high level snapshot of our architecture. The solution is 100% developed in Java. As a main storage, we use age-based cluster, which is non-relational customer database. And if deployed on premises, there is no hidden costs in terms of additional software licenses. We don't run something like the Oracle Exadata for database, which would cost you a hefty amount. The three ways to deploy and consume Noto, the classic, I would say, SAS or on-premises solution. And by on-premises, we mean either in your data center on physical machines or in any public cloud that you may be using. The hybrid setup really combines the best of both. And by that, I mean that it will be an instance that runs in your infrastructure, but entirely technically managed by us. So you get to benefit from all the price point upsides of having something on premises, because very roughly speaking, in that instance, we'll price it as a flat annual license. It will not be dependent on the number of transactions that you screen, on the frequency of the calls, on anything that's volume or count related. And at the same time, you don't have to worry about its operations. We have 24/7 network operations center that can take over that monitoring. The technical teams would be installing new updates that we publish with our releases, because we still have quite a frequent releases, maybe once every month, month and a half. Some of these are quite major, some of these are just minor features and fixes. And you don't have to bother your in-house technical teams with the monitoring and operation of a third-party solution, which they generally don't enjoy too much. And if you want to start simple, the SAS option is always there. It's probably the quickest one to deploy. That is pretty much all my slides today. And I hope you found it interesting. So if you have any questions, more than happy to have a discussion.
Okay, quite interesting, very interesting, Ivan, the presentation, what you are doing, and your product. Just a couple of questions from myself. The first is, as many organizations already use their own IT system, I would like to say if your product and your system is quite flexible and very able to integrate their own, or it's independent from their own IT architecture first, and then as you manage a lot of data and use for the anti-fraud, for prevention, for compliance and credit risk analysis and so on, but also if you can work on marketing tool, as it's your activity could be considered also for with a marketing aim, a marketing goal, and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. The first question, Noto usually is integrated either synchronously or asynchronously with all customer systems and tools. Let's say if you're doing fraud prevention on issuing, we'll be getting the call before our customer confirms the authorization and responding with a recommendation whether that authorization should be approved or not. So the customer, let's say, card system or card authorization system needs to be able to consume the response from Noto. That's a matter of the integration stage. And in terms of involvement with other systems of the customer, really that comes at the integration stage, from where the data would be coming, and the endpoint on the customer side that would be receiving and handling the response, so it can be handled for the specific use case. Let's say for the transactional AML monitoring, you don't have to always be able to decline the transactions, because the compliance teams take a little bit different approach than the fraud teams. They investigate the user behavior, maybe collect some information from the user, then they continue to monitor. But there can be another aspect of the integration, like adding the webhooks to our case management, so you can just automate some of the manual review processes. Like for MoldingCon, we're building the initial customer risk assessment upon account opening. And their compliance team gets the account opening requests. It's already scored with their initial risk level assessment matrix. And for anything that is high risk, they've built a process that requires manual approval. So whenever they approve or decline the account, the back office gets the response and they're able to address the customer. So different ways of integration with the customer system depending on the use case, but generally we're quite flexible.
Okay.
To your second question about the marketing application, so as long as you have all of your customer financial data in terms of, let's say, card transactions or bank transfers, if anyone from the sales or marketing teams are interested, they can have their own monitoring, like who is getting frequently up to their card limit. Whether that's the ATM limit or the credit limit, and maybe they can have targeting for those users to sell them higher limits, just one. Or if you have some cashback or rewards program as a card issuer, you can be monitoring if someone is not abusing it by making too many purchases and refunds, or using some stored value services like, I don't know, Skrill, Neteller, PayPal, and just moving the money in a circle so they can earn some points. Yeah. So there can be an application of that, you know, and within Noto, you can build different lists with the different tier users that you have, let's say returning customers, high value users, inactive customers, and you can define criteria at which you want to monitor what these guys do and target them with, I don't know, some promotions, or just have them in a queue for customer service team to contact them and ask them if why they're not using their account or what's going on. I'm just making up some examples.
Yeah. You weren't go deeper about AI, artificial intelligence on your side. Can you explain more about this, and also in terms of some, if yet, some predictability products on or so on, if you are developing something like this?
We are. What we're launching at the moment, it's the capability for our customers who already have built some in-house models for different purposes to ingest those models and allow them to run these in real time as additional layer on top of what they have as monitoring policies. And we'll continue to develop that in the next year in direction where the customers will be able to train and iterate their models within our platform, so it all happens in the same place. So that would bring exactly what you're asking for, to have a tailor-made model for the data of our customer, which they can also train and run within Noto. Indeed, AI and machine learning is a hot topic lately, but it shouldn't be approached also as kind of the silver bullet and the solution for everything, you know. The machine can't understand or learn your model and challenges and risks if you don't participate in that exercise. Call it supervised or unsupervised learning. Also, there are a lot of questions that you have to ask yourselves before you go into that direction, and they're around, do I have sufficient data from my business? Is it well organized and labeled, what's good and what's bad? And a lot of considerations that have to be made, because if you are just a business that doesn't generate large number of transactions like Cantox is, their average ticket size is in the tens of thousands or 100,000s of euro, but the number of transactions, they're not that large. So it's an item that we're certainly investing a lot of time, and we've already rolled out the first stage. And we're taking slightly different approach than the black box that most of the vendors in the space offer. And it's usually dumbed down to an extent where you're supposed to tell it only what's good and bad, and it should figure on its own. But we don't share that vision, let's put it this way.
Okay. At the end, what can you say about some tips for microfinance field from your side? Have you some suggestions for microfinance in order to improve fraud prevention or high intelligence, artificial intelligence, or crime, credit risk analysis, something like that? Have you any suggestion for this field?
Let me try. I already touched upon the subject of AI and machine learning. You know, approach it carefully with a lot of questions and really try to understand what's in the box and how applicable it is to your business model. But that goes for any third-party solution. Take a deep dive and really understand how the solution works and to what extent you have control, or you be in control of what happens to your transaction monitoring and screening. Take a look also at the non-financial transactions of your customers, as this is what, after some time, especially our customers in banking start to realize that, okay, focusing on the transactional element for the purposes of the transactional AML is obviously the core of the activity. But if you take a look at the logins from the online component of their business, the online banking, or to the apps that the banks start to offer, they actually discover even more interesting links between accounts that not necessarily exist on transactional level. Mine in your account might not be related through send money back and forth, or through a common recipient sending funds to mine in your account. But if my account and yours are just created as a new accounts, the same person can be operating those accounts through the online banking. And it's one of the approach that money launderers take. So I think that's what we've found out lately. Look at what also is happening into the non-financial transactions channel. And last but not least, if you already have all of your customer and transactional data in any monitoring platform, whether that's for fraud and AML, whether that's somebody else, it doesn't matter, you might actually be able to use it for some other things that you haven't considered. And this is to your point for marketing or identifying customers with potential, maybe, or customers that are not using the service.
Fine.
Because usually, you know, compliance and fraud teams are looked as cost to the business, right? Whether that's good or bad, usually we fell into the cost bucket, but you can change the perception by looking at other aspects, or at least tabling them for the business.
Okay.
And of course, AML and PEPs and sanction screening. This is something that is obligatory for all microfinance institutions. So we are experts in this, and we have really very powerful engine for doing these checks. So this is the first pillar that we could support microfinance institutions with.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the webinar is quite useful all for the attendees and also for that will attend in our registration in the future. And I think that's a very, very interesting topic. So if no one is raising the hand, I also remind that the session has been recorded, and of course the recording will be shared with attendees after this conference very briefly. And I kindly ask to the people to complete the evaluation form after the webinar, so that we know how we have done. And I would like to thank Ivan and Ivailo for this session, to reach out to us and keep in touch. And thank you for all our attendees. And see you later. I think that could be very useful to stay in touch. Thank you very much to all.
Likewise.
And
thank you for your time today.
For the perfect organization. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks to EMN for hosting us, and see you next time.
Stay
Bye.
safe, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.